Welcome back to For the Love of Men podcast. My name's Courtney Shand, and I'm hosting with my dear friend, Brianna Mosher.
Hello.
The intention of the show is to bring together men and women to learn how to honor each other's natural, masculine and feminine energetic cores so that you can create healthy dynamics, healthy, polarized relationships, especially in the dating phase.
Yes.
We love talking about that. And before we dive in, we've got some really fun conversation today. Things that we have picked up along the way that we want to share with you and engage with you on. But first, I want to introduce you to my friend, Bree. If you're new, Bree is amazing, and she's going to tell you a little bit about why.
Thank you for that intro.
Yeah.
My name's Bree. I work with really driven, ambitious women, either to scale in their businesses or advance in their career. They're usually driven in one of those ways. And soften into their feminine energy, embrace their sexuality, and attract in healthy love from empowered masculine partners. So we do all kinds of wound healing and play with energetics. And just like Courtney, my method is through somatic. So we go through the body to really deeply heal those wounds that might be attracting the wrong type of people or thwarting your relationship with money or sex, all that juicy stuff. So that's the work that I do in the world. Courtney, what is your magic?
Yes. I am a relationship mentor and a feminine energy dietitian. I'm going to start coining that.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Bring out the big guns. Pew, pew, pew. Put those things away. If you can't see, Courtney does finger guns a lot. When I ask her, are you ready to rock? She's like, and she like does this thing with her finger. Anyway.
Yep. I help women heal the relationship that they have with their body. We only get one, and it's our responsibility to take care of it and learn how to love it and build a healthy relationship with it. At different points in our life, we need different things. And so I love bringing my physiology, nutrition background into that space mixed with feminine energy. I was writing a post today about feminine energy and physiology.
Ooh.
Pew. The mashup of that.
So great.
That's what I do. Healing generational trauma and releasing that from your body can be very healing and helpful, not only so that you can show up as the most authentic, fully expressed version of you in dating, but also so that you can just feel good, feel enlivened, and get the vitality that you're looking for.
Amazing. So brilliant.
Thank you.
What's our topic today, Courtney?
Oh, man. Specifically about dating. We opened this up about the dating piece because we want to talk a little bit about compatibility in dating.
Yes.
We talk so much about the energetics of what to look for, what that feels like, how to recognize healthy energy when it's coming towards you. And this time we're going to talk a little bit about compatibility, which you had a great definition of.
Yeah, my favorite definition of what someone I would call a soulmate, and that's how, I can't remember who quoted it, but that's how they had described it. But you could just say an aligned partner or someone you are quote unquote meant to be with, the best fit for you. They said a soulmate is when logic and emotion align. And that makes so much sense to me as someone who's, as Courtney knows, I've talked about on the show, dated a narcissist for 2 years and gone through all this healing work and now has a really healthy, wonderful relationship with such an EM. And it makes sense logically and emotionally. And that alignment is such peace. And I see in my practice all the time, women or men who choose out of emotion and say, but I love him, or, I have all these feelings towards him, or I want him, or I'm attached to him. And I get it. I sympathize 100% and empathize with that. And compatibility matters in terms of building a long-term relationship and choosing a life partner. It's arguably the most important decision that you will make because that person's going to be in your energy every day. Every day of your life. So you want to make sure these other things are compatible. Love is wonderful. Love isn't enough to make a relationship healthy and sustain its healthiness. There are other factors that matter, not just love.
Yes.
Yeah. So we want to talk about those things.
Amazing. And such a great point because that is how I was taught about empowered masculine energy.
Really?
Empowered masculine energy and empowered feminine energy is the harmony of logic and stability and integrated emotion. When those two come together, it's like, pew.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So Yeah, this is really about emotional maturity of being able to discern both internally, use your head and your heart.
Yes, that integration piece that we always preach about, that needs to be on a t-shirt.
Genius.
Healthy partners are integrated partners.
I'm writing that down.
Right? Okay.
Start us off.
So number one, we'll start right at the top of our list. We have several for you that we'll probably break into 2 parts. But number one is the willingness to change versus the tolerance of where they are now. We went deep into this on our walk the other day.
Yeah.
Accountability, right? This is such a green flag in somebody. You can love them, but if they're the type of person that says, this is just how I am, I'm stuck in my ways, take it or leave it, that's all right. But then you have to consider, can you take it or leave it? Can you live with those things that they're not willing to work on? For me personally, I value personal growth and development deeply. And I know it's the same for Courtney. It's a core value of both of ours. And so in partnership, that matters to me to be aligned, that I can bring something to you and you'll be accountable for it. And if that person isn't invested in personal growth, then your values might be out of alignment. It also might be really difficult to do true repair work after conflict if that person isn't willing to be accountable for some of the ways that they might have caused injury in the relationship. So you know, someone will reveal a lot about themselves in conflict and in repair work. Not to say that you should judge them just off of that, but it is something to keep in the back of your mind. What would you add to that?
And this is why we're saying it. Like, if you're just in the early phases of dating, these are the reasons why this is important to keep an eye out for early on, when emotions are high and logic is low. Not low, but it's traditionally kind of like, oh, but it feels so good. I want to be with him. It feels so good. We steer ourselves a lot with emotion. So thank you for sharing
100%.
that.
Great point.
Yeah.
Even the chemicals in your brain steer you that way.
Yeah, the limerence phase. Yeah. So where I was going with this in my mind is the idea of there's a certain amount of self-acceptance that we've talked about, where self-acceptance is sexy. That is like the ultimate trump card of like, this is who I am. I own it. I love myself. Here's where I'm at. That being said, if you are not okay with that level of acceptance, there has to be either a shift towards change so that the relationship can continue to evolve and unfold, or you're going to have to part ways. And this might happen. I just wanted to put a nod to this of the level of emotional maturity and self-awareness as we age and develop and progress emotionally. You may be a little bit more set in when a man is in his like king energy, like this, like, hey, here's who I am, this is what I do. It's gonna be a lot more difficult to adapt if that's not a good natural fit. Same thing for a woman, I would say, in her queen energy, where she's established her boundaries and she's like, this is not gonna fly with me. That would be where I would say you either have to tolerate it or you're going to have to part ways, because there's probably not as much willingness to change. So depending on where you are in that kind of like process, you may have a little bit more influence or a little bit more ability to work with and kind of collaborate on building who you're going to become. But then the relationship gets to become supportive of the best, most empowered versions of yourselves.
So true. Yeah, well said.
Thanks.
Well said.
Yeah.
Number 2, you want to start us off?
Yeah. So we did, when we were thinking through these, of like what needs to be lining up that we wouldn't have necessarily been looking for when we were in that like limerence kind of glossy
you're amazing.
phase.
Everything's perfect. Everything you do is wonderful.
Yeah, I just want to receive all the time. Just be around you all the time. Really practical things like your value structure. What is important to you, your like principles and boundaries, what you define your life and what's okay with. Simple things like just lifestyle. Do our lifestyles sync up? Are you a night person and he's a morning person? Is that okay that you're not going to be spending time together in bed? Are you going to be, does he need a TV on and you like silence? Things that you don't necessarily think about, but as you're observing them earlier in the dating phase, the way that they're operating in their like natural environment is probably good information to be picking up.
Yeah.
just lifestyle in general. Same thing with values. When we talked about in our emotional intelligence masterclass, but in that episode as well, we talked about listening for values. We're always communicating our values. If you can listen for what do they value earlier on, you can start to see, is that something that's a high value of mine too? Are our values ranked in similar order, or are they close enough in ranking that these are not going to be non-negotiable walk-away issues? If health is a number 1 for you and it's a number 6 for them, that might be too much distance for your lifestyles to sync up. And that's going to create some friction where you don't feel like you get to be the most natural, peaceful, authentic version of you, because you're going to have to be monitoring boundaries. It's not that it's a non-negotiable. It just depends on how skillful you are with your boundaries, in my opinion.
Only you know what your non-negotiable is.
Yeah.
Some things you'll that would be a non-negotiable for Courtney won't be for you or for me.
Right.
It's fine with me. No, I mean, actually, you've talked about that in the dating process. There have been some things where you would say, that'd be non-negotiable for me. And I'm like, I'm fine with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, great point.
My grandma always said there's a lid for every pot.
Truly. And everyone's unique. So what works for you might not work for somebody else and vice versa. But I think it's super important to talk about, to know what your values and principles are. For me, that's really important. If you haven't listened to the episode, I think it's 12, what makes an empowered feminine woman, like the cornerstone. We talk about integrity. Yes. This is our most underrated episode.
I agree. It's my favorite.
Me too. When Courtney and I did that, we were like, every woman needs to hear this.
Yep.
We were so proud of it, and it's got less plays than it deserves. Anyway, think about your own values. I've shared on the show before. For me, I know it's non-negotiable to be aligned with my partner spiritually. I have to connect in that way. As a sex and intimacy and pleasure coach, we've got to be aligned in that way as well. And lifestyle and drive, really, as an entrepreneur. I want somebody who thinks outside of the box. Personally, a 9-to-5 partner wouldn't work as well for me because I've created so much freedom in my lifestyle that I want that with a partner. I want to wake up whenever we want to wake up. I want someone who values creativity and making an impact and operates in the world a different way. Not to shame a 9-to-5, just to know what works for me. And I know that through dating. So when I was dating, before I was with my current partner, I would bring all these things up pretty dang early. And then also where you're going is really important. How soon do you want to be married? How soon do you want to have kids?
Yeah.
Do you not want to have kids? Would you date someone who has kids? These things are also, they can be deal breakers.
Yeah. Yes. And we talked about this in the How to Not Lose Yourself in a Relationship. I think it was number 7, maybe, way back.
7 or 8, yeah.
Something like that. Of the reason that we want to be upfront with these is not so that you're coming with this like brick wall energy of like, so tell me what you, blah, 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 what you need, what you want, blah, blah, blah. I keep saying blah, 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 but...
blah, blah, blah. Me too.
Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
But it's not so that you're like hitting them with this brick wall of energy, but rather because the feminine is so much more likely, especially in that early phase of limerence, to be more adaptable, that later on this is going to come back and be more difficult to unravel. So having these conversations early is actually to your advantage, if not as a walk away, but otherwise just so that you can get these things on the table for your own practice. It's going to be far less difficult to have the conversation in month 6 if you nudged it or had a nod to it being important in the first couple dates. Like, hey, I just, remember I said that this was something that's really important to me. What do you think about it? I want to talk about this now that we're in this stage where we've been seeing each other more exclusively. We have a little bit more rapport. We can go deeper. I'm really curious. And then you can readjust your boundaries based on what you hear from an informed space.
Yeah, so well said. And I'm glad you said that too, because it is a characteristic of the wounded feminine to collapse her boundaries. It's a characteristic of the wounded feminine to collapse her boundaries, to be pleasing, and to kind of get swept up in how good it feels to like somebody and be liked by them. Obviously, women have more discernment than that, but the chemicals in your brain influence you at this point, especially if there's lust involved. So the other thing I heard recently, I think my grandmother actually used to say this, not recently, a long time ago, but the problems that you have in the beginning of the relationship are usually problems that you will have later in the relationship. And every relationship has its set of problems. But if these things are coming out where it's his style to stay up till 3 a.m. or he loves to go out and party on the weekends, yes, those things can change with maturity and age and compromise. I've always gone into it with, can I accept this person exactly as who they are today? That way I keep myself out of trying to change someone territory or falling in love with potential. I wish I could underline that. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, really,
Is
the
there
question...
a verbal underline?
Right. The question really should be, could I love and be with and accept this person exactly as they are today, now and forevermore, if I'm choosing them as a partner? Even though, of course, they're going to grow. They're going to change. Their priorities will evolve. But you don't want to enter a dynamic hoping that their principles, values, and lifestyle change, because then it gets real sticky. I know, Courtney, you could probably talk about that forever. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to have a lot of pulling energy. Because even if you were to step in and say, hey, I can accept this person as they are currently, if you continue with that model, you'll always know when the line has been crossed. Because you're staying present. You're not like hoping that they evolve into this like version that you needed them to be from date one but weren't able to communicate.
Yeah.
So good.
So important. And just don't compromise it. Like, know obviously what is a non-negotiable and is a negotiable, but also you get to keep your standards pretty high. The universe opens up for somebody who holds a boundary and a standard and means it. People who meet that come in, so long as you set the boundary energetically, get behind it, and then foster your belief that you get to have it.
Yeah.
And that is work we both do with our clients, like really opening up to, no, yes, I can bring in an entrepreneur who's spiritual and values pleasure and family and all these things. Even though at one point I thought that was impossible. But I worked so hard to get myself to believe this is totally available. And that's what's come in. And it came through the process, right, of Courtney saw it firsthand. Dating all kinds of people who were almost and getting really solid about what those values and principles are. So I would recommend write them down. What are those non-negotiable principles? And talk to the person you're dating about it. You don't have to do it like a checklist, but bring it up in conversation.
Yeah, it can be really neutral. Like, you can just have a conversation. It doesn't have to be like, so this is a deal breaker for me, and
here are my deal breakers.
I need to know right now. It may take some time. It may take some unfolding, some unraveling. You may have some unraveling to do of your own kind of where that got set in. Is this something that I really want and need based on my own experience? Is this something that I took on because this is what it is expected?
Yes.
Great clarification.
And maybe keep the boundary of no partner is like 100% perfectly aligned most of the time. Everyone's going to have their stuff. It's just deciding what stuff you're okay with dealing with. Just to keep it human.
Yeah, for sure. You know your triggers. The more you know your triggers, the more you can say, hey, that's not going to be an area I can step into with you.
Yes.
If I have a certain type of background that is consistently going to be triggered based on your normal daily patterns, we're just not going to be thriving together. You can be a great person, I can be a great person, but we won't thrive in the same space if I'm always having to be triggered.
Yes.
So, yeah, this kind of leads into just general worldview.
Love it.
If you haven't had a conversation about, they always say, like, don't talk about politics or religion because they're just downers. But these are important things because these are things that actually shape your worldview, how you were raised, the principles and values and worldview structure that you were packed with coming into the relationship is going to come out in the relationship. When I did my masterclass on housework, collaborative housework, being able to show up knowing what you bring in terms of your background, like what was normal in your house, understanding that what's normal in someone else's house is equally valid, and coming together and finding that neutral ground. Same thing here with religion and politics. What was normal for you growing up and what was normal for me growing up can be totally different. The skill set that we're looking for is how collaboratively can we merge those two, and how much can we tolerate there being a difference. how much individualism is allowed? Do we need to have things that are like very, very similar, or else it's going to fracture part of my core self?
Yes.
Or is it something that you can have this thought and I can have this thought and we can coexist,
challenge each other and expand each other.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes. And work together to build a new kind of third option for our relationship values and how we as a couple want to operate, because that's going to play into how we raise kids too, if that's what you want. That's going to play into what you impart on your household.
Yeah, and is it a value of yours to have the religious or spiritual connection? A lot of my clients express that they want to have a spiritual relationship, or they want to have a Christ-centered relationship, whatever is authentic to them. They want alignment with their partner in that way. So it's important that you talk about it, because if you are wanting that and then you're with a partner who's misaligned in those ways, the temptation, particularly for women, but probably for men too, I'm just speaking from my own experience, can be to shrink and feel like this person doesn't get to meet all of me.
Yes.
So if religion or spirituality is a big value to you, a center of your life, that's a part of who you are. You want to bring it to the table, then you want someone who can meet it. And maybe they don't agree, but they can hold space, listen, learn, explore with you. You can decide what your tolerance level is, as Courtney beautifully described. Yeah, that will deeply impact. And then how would that impact the way you create your household if you were to have children? Stuff matters. Politically, too, matters. To whatever degree it matters to you personally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, if it's something that's neutral for you, you might be fine with them being more polarizing.
Yes.
And vice versa. But yeah, I love that. I just read a quote the other day and it said something about loneliness is being surrounded by people who can't understand your language.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, I would say, especially for the feminine. The feminine is spirituality is deeply rooted in the feminine energy. That is like this divine connection. And so it makes sense that a lot of feminine energy activated people, like people who resonate with being more in their feminine energy.
Yes, feminine core people.
Yeah, are going to have some sort of spiritual practice that they are wanting to be heard. Like they want to have a common tongue with someone. They want to be heard because that allows them to fully express that part of themselves, and to not express such a huge part of your makeup would be deeply lonely.
Yeah.
And that's going to play into every aspect of your relationship.
I would agree. I think it's also similar with the work that you and I do around masculine and feminine energy. I've really valued a partner who's interested in and engaged with what does it mean to be healthy masculine, healthy feminine, what does polarity look like? And even if we don't have to all the way agree all the time, you can hold space and talk about it. What is your experience? What is my experience? How have you received women? How have I received men? How have you received the masculine? Whatever. That was a value. So if you're listening to this podcast, you likely value polarity. I think that's important to talk about too with your potential partners.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking maybe we save the last 4 for the next episode.
I agree.
Okay, we're on the same wavelength. So if you love this and you want more, please share it, number 1. Please share it with someone that you think needs to hear it, that wants to learn about compatibility. Send it to your friend, your sister, your mom, your brother, your uncle, your cousin. Send it to anybody that you want. Please share it. Yeah. Follow us on TikTok for the Love of Men podcast. And then if you want to work with Courtney, what do you have open, Courtney?
Yeah. Right now I am loving talking about my nutrition-related program, Nourished. This is all things feminine energy and physiology. I have a background, like I said, as a dietitian, so I bring a lot of the science to what's happening in your body so that you can understand how you work, what's normal, what's what's expected, kind of at different points in your life, and then merging that with the relationship that we have with our body. One of the longest relationships that we have is with our body, with food, with how we care for ourselves. When we take ownership of that, we can transform not only how our body looks, but how we feel inside of it. And to me, that's the most important thing.
Yes.
Feeling congruent with this shape that you get to walk around in. The
well
vehicle.
Said.
Yeah, the vehicle that takes you to your purpose.
And a lot of other really great
and
places.
And a lot of other great places, like Breeze Work.
I was going to say Jack Brown's in Nashville. but also sex and intimacy.
You up for your work.
No. Orgasms,
funny.
pleasure, all those things too. But I get a lot of pleasure out of those burgers. This is not a plug. I was just straight up thinking about how much earlier I was thinking about that. Okay, Brie, get back on track.
You're silly.
What do I have open, you ask? Oh, I have a program coming out at the end of the year when this is airing called Soft and Secure. This is for people who want to embrace their feminine energy and melt into their feminine energy. And part of that is bringing your empowered masculine online and then learning how to soften into your feminine and meet the world with more softness, slowing down, sensuality, pleasure, healing your relationship with your emotions, so many juicy things. So I have that open, and if you want to bundle it with the program we just finished, the pleasure program, you can do that as well. That's a great sister program for it, which is for vulva owners to embrace their pleasure, feel less inhibited in the bedroom, come alive, be alive inside their bodies, get out of their head, learn to pleasure map, learn anatomy, erotic breathing, all kinds of juicy things. So got both those open.
Genius. Brilliant.
And we have a masterclass that you can purchase on self-study for emotional intelligence, and there's one for men and one for women. There's details about that in the show notes.
Yep.
And then sign up for our email list. Last but not least, we send out monthly dating and relationship challenges via email, and they are juicy. You get a video of Courtney and I, candidly, no edits, usually 1 to 2 takes, where we give you a challenge to focus on for the month around cultivating healthier dating, life, and relationships. So join us there too. Okay, we love you. We will see you in the next episode.